that were set up as member organizations of the ERA as well. So that means you have an organizational account, and there's certain things you can do with an organizational account, along with just sort of you as a member of the ERA space, joining the ERA sort of member forum as the collective spot that everybody's gathering as kind of the piazza or exchange place. But you also can kind of branch out from the ERA space now that you're sort of in the platform and begin sort of networking and discovering some of the other networks and projects and organizations that are in the space as well. So we just want to make sure people had the opportunity to ask questions and maybe get initial sort of like, some of you I think have jumped in, some of you may have jumped in an earlier time, some of you have maybe never even looked at it. So I think I wanted to just have an open session today to maybe send some resources, give some basic 101, so people even feel like, where do I even sign in, or comfortable. But I also thought I'd just open the floor to, if people have been in there, if you do have questions, kind of where anyone is at in terms of saying, I'd like to play, but I'm not quite sure how, or I tried to play and this is something I'm not sure about. We just wanted to leave the conversation open. So I guess I wonder about maybe just starting at square one and making sure everybody knows how to log in to their accounts. Is that something everybody has had at least the opportunity to do, or at least knows where to go for that?
I've done it ages ago. It'd be nice to have a refresher.
Yeah, okay. Well, a few things. There's in the ERA website, there's a sort of filtered version of specifically the ERA marketplace. And, when you go through the stories or go through the explore, different categories sort of pull up those who've been tagged with a particular sort of way of noting. But then once you've sort of signed in through that platform, you're inside the sort of shared marketplace. So after you've kind of signed up there, you can, for the future, you can go to, I'll show you here, I'll put it in the chat. And
you mean to be sharing your screen, Jamaica?
I'm about to, yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat first too, so people can follow along. Hi, Deb. Okay, so there's your traditional login. I will share the screen here. And I just wanted to note, we will send along, if you haven't already seen it, a member resource. It's just like a simple guide that has some helpful sort of tips and tools. It has a tutorial if you haven't really checked into your account. It has some like initial things you can do when you're setting up your account. So this is our live sort of marketplace before you're a member. So people are already seeing your projects and organizations and you and your profiles. So one of the first things you want to do is make sure you feel accurately represented in the marketplace. We have a lot of networks starting to step on. We have Kinship Earth from the KINS network is starting to step on. We have some folks working in a big media collective. We have some university systems. We have some very interesting networks starting to show up. So this marketplace is getting attention. So the first thing you'd want to do is just make sure that your particular sort of profile is accurately represented. But the first thing that you do to even sort of enter beyond just visibly seeing the marketplace and being able to search for projects or group of people, you just come into the sign in. And if you don't have your credentials, Cole can help you with that. If you don't have your sort of username and password. And for those who weren't here or for the recording's sake, I was naming that you both have an individual password to sign in as yourself. And then also many of you have an organizational password to sign in as your organization. And you can do different things as a person and as an organization. In your organizational account, we can help you spin up groups or projects that can be either external and be visible in that marketplace if you want to represent some of the projects of your organization, but also you can have internal groups. So you have an org account if you wanted to say, coordinate your team or that's working on a project together. Or invite a certain group of stakeholders into the platform to have communication channels or have like a private group space. Those of you with organizational accounts, you have access to that. So we can have a discussion about if you really want to start using your organizational account for more than just sort of being represented in the ERA community. But all of you at least have your personal account so that you as a member can navigate the space first thing you want to do if you haven't already is when you log in, if you want to update your settings so that your profile and banner and personal image are updated, you just go up to the settings. And that's the same for your organizational accounts as well. And this is where you can make sort of any changes to your security questions or update your banner profile, update your sort of bio here. And then a big part of our system is the searchability based on tags. So like you noticed in the marketplace, if somebody wanted to look for somebody who had a particular skill in, say, community development, you'd want to tag sort of your particular skills or knowledge or purpose. That way you're searchable in the marketplace under your particular area of expertise. So you'd want to tag yourself so that you're sort of visible and searchable and there's context. I will say, because we're all part of this alpha community, meaning we're working towards our beta launch and we'll be adding additional members to the platform before we go public this fall, but you're all still in our early phase of building partnership. So it's about testing and refinement of the system. It's getting feedback before we go live. And one of the places we're getting feedback is we didn't want to create an ontologies list of skills and purpose and knowledge without asking the experts in the field. We didn't want to assume how you sort of name your particular area of focus. We would like to hear the feedback about something that's missing here. We roughly base this off the SDGs and IRIS categories, but there's sort of also university system categories. And I feel like there's very relevant context to the bodies of work you're doing. So feel free just to either send over to Deb or Cole or me, and they can always pass it on to me, a list of particular tags that you feel will be really relevant in your area of expertise or skill. That will help us grow this to be even more accurate, but we didn't want to make those assumptions on your behalf. We wanted to ask our members, how do you describe your particular bodies of work? You can add this latitude, longitude to be visible on the map. We're working on this being something that's automated based on what you select your address as, but I will show you in just a second here. I'll show you what it looks like to have your profile represented on the map. So there's a very easy conversion. You can just look up lat long and I'll give you the email for it. I'm sorry, the URL, and just add your latitude and longitude. And then that way you are now connected to the map. So I'll show you basically when you update all of that, what that looks like is your nice profile page here. I'll go back since I told you I would do it and just show you the map really quick. And I'll just go through a couple more things, but leave some time for questions. I want to be specific to what maybe some of the inquiries you all have are. Here's the mapping version, however. So when I say if you want to add your latitude and longitude, before it's automated, if you want to manually add it, now you and your profile will have a spot on the map. And I see your hand, John. I'll just finish this and then answer your question. It pulls up your particular profile. Oh, look, there's Philip. I jumped to you and it shows sort of your profile, what you're tagged with, and then I can view the member profile. And this is a good way for you to start building connections like you would in Facebook. You really only have activity going on when you're joined in a group, you're joined in a project, or you start making connections between other members. So if I want to connect with Philip, I'm going to go ahead and do that, Philip. I'm going to just hit connect, and that's kind of like making a friend request. The other person will then in their notifications get a request indicator that they need to accept in order to then create the connection between your accounts. And that way you can send messages to each other, or if I post something on my personal news feed, then Philip now will see it and vice versa. I'll pause there, John, if you wanted to ask a question.
Well, very simply, I'm looking at the settings and I see my profile and I don't see a field for skills that you illustrated.
Let's go back and look. So here in the profile configuration, right here at the bottom, you don't have this category for yourself?
Here, I can share my screen if you want, but my projects, my groups, marketplace. No, under basic info, I don't see it. Then you click next. Yes.
You go under settings.
Got it. Okay. I didn't see the next button. There it is. You may proceed.
Yeah, thank you. There's both the next, and you can also just come across to the top if you want to move between the different tabs. I'm showing you all my security info right now. Yeah, so that's how you would kind of make any changes to your overview so that you're represented. And then really quickly so that you know what's happening that you can use. And this profile is the aggregate of all of your groups and projects. So whatever groups I'm a part of or projects I'm a part of, when I go to my personal news feed, I'm going to see any sort of news feed or tasks that have been attributed to one of the groups or projects I'm a part of, or my connection. So like if Philip and I made the connection, then now I would see Philip's posts here. So we're really about the content being very specific to your context. So you won't see a lot of things happening in other parts of the system unless you join other projects or orgs, or if you make connections. You're just going to see the content relevant to the context of the group or project or org that you're a part of. And the news feed is a bit more ephemeral. It's like where you'd post videos or stories. It's not meant to be sort of this dynamic knowledge repository the way the discussions tab is. It's really about, just like you'd see on a social media post, the kind of ongoing interesting articles or interesting comments. You can comment on other people's, but this is basically showing all the different groups and projects that I'm a part of, and I can leave a comment here, or I can post and it'll push across. The calendar of events is sort of any events that are relevant to the groups and projects I'm a part of. My personal to-dos, and then attachments are where you can upload things like PDFs. I can also see all of my collaborators here. So here's all the people that I've made contacts with that are now considered like my collaborators. Oh, one important thing, you guys aren't really there yet and using this, but over time, if the ERA ever wants to really launch projects, or any of your organizations want to use the project management group, we do have the function to sort of manage projects. This has an underlying ERP system, so it can be a pretty complex workflow, but we've had it very simple, just a Gantt chart. And I've been assigned these tasks. So if I get assigned a task from a project, I can go to my own news feed and pull up that task assignment and sort of mark if I've added any time. Like say I put an hour in on time on a task, I can come back and save it and add more time. I can comment on it back to the project manager. I can attach any files. Let's say I was working on a project and I wanted to upload some work I had done, and I can keep saving it until it's complete. And then when it's complete, it allows a two-way survey. I get to say how the experience was. We're sort of working on building the base bones of qualitative data and relational experiential data, not just quantitative. So you'll get basically a survey once you mark complete that was like, that was great, I really appreciated it. Or here's the feedback about how that working on that project was. So this is the kind of thing you'll see in your own personal news feed. I don't think I'm going to go over the project management tools at this time. If folks are, as an organization, really wanting to like understand how they can use this to manage projects, happy to send resources and have a follow-up discussion. The only other big thing I wanted to show now, and then I just want to open it up for brief questions, is that the discussion tab on my personal feed, again, is the aggregate of all the different discussions that I'm a part of. So discussions are created and moderated by an organization. So the ERA member forum, which I'm going to go to in a second, that's where they would set up discussion posts, but we can all comment on them. We can add to them. We can add images. We can add sort of articles. And so that's how we can participate in the discussions that are happening on ERA or any other project we're a part of. If you go into your organizational account, if you want to post something, you can also create a discussion from your organizational account and then invite other members to join you. That could be like, now that Philip and I are contacts, I can create a discussion that I just send to Philip as a conversation between us until we get our instant messaging turned on, which will be in our next release. Then it'll be just like a chat function. But right now I can send a discussion memo to Philip and we can have a conversation that way that's private, or I can have it between Philip and John and I, or I can select all and have it between whoever else I'd like to involve. So you can still use the discussions as a person, you're just choosing who you want to have a chat with. But if you want to have a discussion that members can join, you do that from the organization. It's being very slow to load, and that's because I have mountain internet. We're working on getting Starlink soon. So maybe I won't wait for this to load, because I think I'll just show you in the group. It's just loading really slow, my apologies. But basically this will show any of the discussions that I'm a part of, and I can search for discussions both on the tag. If I was like, where was I talking about water? Or where was I talking about eco-restoration? Those tags would then pull up discussions I've been a part of, or I can search for a title. So that's what's happening here. And then here's all the connections that I have. Last thing, just as a person, here's all sort of my friends as we would put them. Last thing is that up here is where you receive notifications. So if you're ever invited to a group or a project, or Philip, if you log into your account, you'll see that I have a connection request up there. That's how you sort of find discussions that you've been implied in or make a connection, etc. Some of these go to your email, some of these are in-house, and we're working to obviously improve the notifications so they're even more sort of robust. I think I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any questions. I don't want to overwhelm with things I think are useful. I'd love to hear if there's anything that's particularly useful for everybody.
I added in the chat the website link for if you want to get your lat long coordinates by plugging in your address. That's in the chat. I think Marna has a question in the chat about being logged in as an org. And I'm not sure, that's all it says. So I'm not sure what the question is. It sounds like maybe she's trying to clarify what that means.
I just thought maybe John wasn't seeing the option of tags because maybe he was logged in as his org, but I was mistaken. I was trying to be helpful and sorry to confuse anyone.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's it then.
Thank you.
Okay, Anika, I'll help get you into the system. Or Deb, were you able to do that for her and get her new password?
Yeah, I gave her my email address to set her up.
Okay, so Anika, we'll make sure we can get you into the system. And I did want to say that here is the place. So if you notice what I did as Jamaica, I went up to my groups. And obviously I have a whole lot of groups I'm a part of, but you may only have the Eco Restoration Alliance member forum. This is the primary place where everybody is sort of gathering. I hear an echo of myself. That public piazza space. So this is the main point of engagement for the ERA community at this time. So all you do is just go up to my groups. Obviously you could see what my projects were as well if you've been implied in any projects. But under my groups, you just go into the Eco Restoration Alliance members forum. And now I'm in the group space where everybody's sort of gathering and having activities. We haven't had a ton of activity on here, but people as they've been arriving have been coming over to the discussion thread. And this is where sort of the ERA stewards have been adding some relevant discussions to, oh good, Rochelle's been in there, Heather's been in there. So this is where you can come and begin to sort of get engaged, is add your thoughts to a discussion thread, or even make a request to Cole if you're like, I'd like to have a discussion started specific to something you want to see. Cole can help you set up a discussion thread, and then you can invite other people to sort of engage and participate. Making sure to tag. So right now, there's only tags based on what these have been tagged with, or you can search for a particular topic. But this is one first point of engagement for your community. And then the other really big point of engagement would be this news thread. So this is sort of a place where, again, if you wanted to share articles, if you just wanted to be like, hi, everybody, here's an intro about me, a little bit more ephemeral, sort of like social media type communication. This is where you'll be able to add your thoughts or comments, or you can create a post and you don't need to have it be moderated. So those are the two main points where people are starting to gather, and the invitation is to kind of jump in and I know that right now you guys have a very rich Google group as the primary place of sharing information. We don't want to ever, take something that's working well for our community and completely migrate. But I think the hope is that over time, the thing that's happening in the email thread, which is amazing, but sometimes a lot to take in, it's not as taggable, it maybe doesn't have as much context. The hope is that this also becomes a place where that level of sort of exchange of knowledge and wisdom and articles and information, this becomes a place that can support you not only at that level, but as this network and community grows, because this platform has a lot of capacity in the next role, particularly around donations, around multiple mapping layers that we're working to bring in, including like watershed maps and indigenous territories, the polygons of restoration efforts. There's things that can happen sort of to manage projects, receive funding potentially or volunteer support, and also measure results. So the idea that we have this dashboard where as you're collaborating on a project, you can upload measurable results about what kind of impact is being had on project levels. I think that it's not only like it's a great communication tool for the moment, but it's like if you guys start here and start having the community have value of exchange here, then as the tool grows and as your community grows, what the tool is capable of and the platform is capable of as it grows is going to really, I think, be a direct support to some of the efforts that are happening on the ground in your projects and in your organization. So we can always discuss that more. We just wanted to get you started with basic participation and figuring it out. And we can always kind of have other times to say, okay, let's show you now what's possible when we roll out the next beta version. John, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute for some reason, John. I can't hear you.
The reason is that I keep forgetting. What is the timeline for having notifications show up in my email when there is new activity in the platform?
Notifications should already be being sent if there's a new discussion or if you're being invited to a new group. It doesn't do it for posts, so it does it for discussions. So the timeline for that roughly is about a month from now. We'll have the next beta rollout and it'll have increased features. It'll like that. The donation should be turned on, improved notifications, improved calendar settings, and improved attachments. So we're working now, and rather than roll out a bunch of changes, we're going to do it as a batch. And then we'll have it all kind of launch at once and updates.
So in discussions, are you saying it's new discussions, but not, for example, new threads, but not, for example, replies to a thread, or anything that happens in the discussion will result in a notification?
My understanding is it's just when, no, I get notifications as well when when Heather replied in a comment to a discussion thread that I was already a part of, I get a notification of that as well. There was an issue last week, so if there hasn't been a lot of activity, then it may have been, we solved where it was sort of not prompting the discussions that for some reason, and this happens in a new product, it was working fine, we did something, all of a sudden it wasn't working as well, we found it, and then now if you haven't tried it in a while, if there's a new comment, it should send a notification to your email, but also it's in system, so I can come to my notifications and see if I've been implied in a comment thread, etc., and I can go to that comment.
And can I tune, so the next problem becomes, oh my God, I'm getting too many notifications. Can I tune the amount of notifications I get?
Yeah, we are working on that part of the next release as well, so that you have more system preferences. So you can choose if you don't want to have any notifications, if you want them batched. Right now, we just send them as they come along. There's not a ton of activity at this time. We're sort of helping you guys build towards that. But by the time you think you really get things going, we'll have systems and notifications where you can indicate how often you want to receive notifications, so you're not being pummeled with things. But those notifications are handy in the way that you get something in your inbox right now, and that's what gets you guys replying on each other's Google threads, like Gmail threads. The hope would be that you would have that same ability, because you're seeing what's happening in the discussions on the platform. I know that you guys are at your time for the rest of your meeting. I don't want to take up more time, but I will just say that Deb, hi to everybody who's joined. Hi Russ, hi Marius, hi Nancy. Hi, Paula. I didn't see everybody jump in while I was sharing screen. Deb is not only obviously an ERA support and Cole as well, so you can directly connect with them, but also Deb is stepping on with Open Impact to help us with community support. So feel free to reach out to any of us if we can kind of have any one-on-one time, and I'll send along some updated member guide materials that give you some step-by-step things that you can do. Thanks for jumping in today.
Thank you, Jamaica. So now we have feel free to ask a few more questions of
Note,
Jamaica.
and Cole's on mute. I think he's working on this, but people are getting a message saying the host has a meeting in progress. I wasn't the only one. And so there are people emailing in the ERA group right now saying they can't get in. I think Cole just sent a new link to fix, but
so basically I don't know what's going on. It's been a bad tech day for me apparently, but for whatever reason the link that comes out of this meeting is working, and it's somehow different from the link that we posted. So I'm just asking people to notify me so I can be aware of who is experiencing the issue, because not
Adam is waiting to be let in, actually.
All right, let me take a look.
I just brought it up because Cole had messaged that he might have to close the meeting out and reset it, but maybe he's got another way. But anyway, I'm sorry I popped in late. But glad to be here.
Jamaica, I have hopefully a quick question. I notice I have an email address, my name with the number 1 after it at openfuturecoalition.org. If somebody
Let's
sends an
fix
email
that,
to
Philip.
that address, where
Yeah.
does it go?
Yeah, so let's fix that. We basically created all the accounts on behalf of ERA, especially as we were pushing towards sort of the launch. And we wanted to just have everyone represented. So we took on the data entry. I think most emails were updated with your actual email, but that's really good insight that some of them may have been missed, Philip. So I will update that for you. And if anybody else has an issue, you can always send that to Cole and we can basically get you sort of accurate in the system, not only sort of placed for the sake of the launch, but able to engage in getting notifications, et cetera. So Philip, I'll fix that. And if anyone else has that, you can just send it to Cole as well.
Okay, well, it's 3:05. Cole, are people still trying to get in, or is this our current quorum?
I believe everybody should have the new link, so we shouldn't have to restart Zoom. And I am keeping an eye on email and my phone just in case anyone does call.
Okay. Then I will begin by saying hello, everybody. A reminder that the agenda is in the email that you have and also now in the chat. And we've got a number of interesting new people to talk about. I also want to talk about the relationship with Bio for Climate, which is evolving. Nancy has some remarks on efficiency and purpose. And I expect that Judith is likely to show up and talk to us about the consensus meeting, the consensus process. I may also share an incomplete but a engaging vision I have for how we can use social media. And Cole is going to talk about the calendar stuff. And since Cole has his hands full, let's just start by saying hello to each other. I'm going to start, since we're a small group and it's been a while, just by inviting our old timers to give us an update on what's new since we last met. Then we will introduce new candidates with a little bit of background and discussion, and we'll pretty much just move through the agenda. So I'm John Shull. I'm a co-founder of Eco Restoration Alliance, and I've spoken to all of you in the past. So I'm going to pass the torch to Philip and let him introduce himself and tell us what relevant to the Eco Restoration Alliance is new with him.
Philip Bogdanoff. I live just outside of Washington, D.C. I'm a board member of Biodiversity Livable Climate. I also nominally direct the chapter, the DC chapter, which I don't know, we have about 60 folks doing nothing at the moment, but occasionally doing conferences. Personally, I have succeeded in getting the food security issue on the radar of the state level organization that's looking into this. And then very locally, looks like we have a 1 acre site to do a Miyawaki forest. It's probably going to take a couple years before it actually gets installed, because currently it's a thicket of bamboo. And who should I pass to? Paula?
Thank you, Philip. Hi, everybody. So I'm Paula Phipps, and I'm Associate Director of Biodiversity for a Livable Climate. So since our last meeting, actually a lot's been happening. One on our GBH series, Life Saves the Planet, which had to do with a global view of Miyawaki forests as a form of urban rewilding and cooling. And another one that is in the planning stages that has to do with New England drought, rivers, and hopefully Mikhail Kravchuk will be part of that. And help to connect Marius and the Nakavali refugee camp or agroecology camp with Vijay Kumar in India. And maybe Marius will talk more about that. And working on helping Nakavali camp get more seeds for planting. May still be a ways from making that a reality, but that's underway. I think that's pretty much it for ERA related work.
Then pass the torch.
Pass the torch to Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Sachs. I'm Executive Director of Biodiversity for a Livable Climate. And as Paula said, we're very involved in a number of projects. And that includes concerns about fundraising and the urgency of promoting eco-restoration in the climate and biodiversity conversations. And I'll pass it to Deb.
Hi, everyone. Deb Fennessy. I've been working with these alliances coming on board, starting with Regenerative Water Alliance and the Eco Restoration Alliance, moving from kind of directly working with property owners on restoration measures to see how to better accelerate, raise awareness on the power and potential of eco restoration, restoring our water cycle. And then as we've started working on open impact, realizing that such a key tool for our collaborations is a tool for us all to better communicate with all of the networks, so we can all see each other and raise our voices together. So excited to kind of continue to help moving that forward, so we can be using that tool to help us coordinate as a living human system, communicating well and supporting everyone's work across the globe. I will so happy to be here, and really excited for what ERA really has brought together with all of the organizations and this this collaboration. Nancy.
Thank you, Deb. I'm Nancy Lee Wood. I live in the northeast part of the United States in Massachusetts, just south of Boston. I'm a sociologist and a board member, president of the board of Biodiversity for a Livable Climate. I teach at a community college as a sociologist, and I've been teaching courses on ecological restoration. I've been pulling in a lot of my students into internships into Biodiversity for a Livable Climate, so that's rather exciting. And I'm currently in the process of working with an intern in Assam, India, who is trying to get some farming, ecological farming going up in her area. I've gotten her connected with Vijay Kumar. And in my own area, I'm working with the state representative and the city council of Taunton, Massachusetts, trying to promote the concept of sustainability and to see what we can do to make Taunton more sustainable. And I will pass it on to Miguel. You're on mute, Miguel.
Sorry. And thank you, Nancy. And I am Michael Kravchuk from Slovakia. I am hydrologist, and originally I am, my background is I building engineering for water dams. And my change 30 years ago was completely oriented to ecosystem restoration. And I trying to find some alternative solution for restoring of water sources. And around this, I had more educated about this relationship between water and climate and how to restore of small water cycles everywhere and how to restore rain on the desert zones. And it's my big dream and ambition. And I am cooperate with some people from England, from India, from Korea, from Australia. Just now I'm a little oriented to Africa, and of course a lot of knowledge is I trying to still to help for US, and together with we are starting very deeply cooperate with Jane Lambert, which is died a couple of weeks ago. And Saturday was memorial, and just now we are cooperate with Russ Beer, and we established some entities to helping for California, and we will see what will be happen. And it's all, yeah. And maybe just now, Russ, please.
Yes.
Continue.
Hi there.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Marius. Go ahead, Marius.
My name is Marius from Nakivale Refugee Camp in Uganda. And I'm the founder of Moja Association here in Nakivale Camp. We work together with refugee farmers who benefit from our regenerative agriculture or ecological agriculture program. We sensibilization, we mobilization, we training, we use the monitoring of the application of a new regenerative agriculture techniques with 3 goals: empower agriculture production and contribute to the processes of climate restoration. The last, and empower refugee farms from agriculture activities. We have developed a system to mobilize the farmer of the organizing an international days of opportunity to show ideas connective of another peoples. And today I take this opportunity to inform other people. On Monday, June, we are organizing a seminar on the occasion of International Day of Environment, and we take advantage to celebrate the importance of the farmers in protecting the environment. With that, if you can join us and the speaker to participate according to your available, and we have as activity during this year. So I'm very happy, and I thanks John Schule, I thanks Paola, and I thanks all committee, all members of Eco Restoration Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marius.
Yeah, thank you, Paola. John, you can speak for me.
I don't have to speak for you, but I will say that that you're coming through loud and clear. I take that as one of the ERA's signal achievements. We helped Marius get connected to the internet, and he's got an iPad that he's now using to make short videos, and I think it's working. And as a result of that, it's been possible for Paula and for Maya, I think, and Tanya, all to give talks at his previous events, and they came back with very enthusiastic about it. So we're still figuring out who we are and what we can do, but that's at least one thing I think we've done really well. It's great to have you here, Marius.
Thank you.
So we're still introducing new members, and a few more have come on board. Jake, you're new here. Why don't you give us an update and then pass it on to somebody else?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Kelly. I'm new to this meeting, but I'm not old to ERA. Been involved since kind of inception, started back in the fall with John and connecting Marius and others. But I'm an entrepreneur, social impact entrepreneur who loves building up global movements for systemic change, especially around scaling up solutions. I'm on the leadership team of Our Planet, Our Future, which is catalyzing 1.5 billion people over 10 years, along with 40 of the world's biggest religious groups to work with business and civil society. And a lot of the stuff we're doing is going to be along land regeneration, regenerative agriculture, whether it's one of our campaigns is starting in Ghana, but a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of content and storytelling and ways to funnel people to existing projects, programs, initiatives, such as the work that we're figuring out here. So what I like the most about Eco Restoration Alliance is there's a lot of potential to take the practitioners to figure out how we're scaling up those solutions. But alongside Our Planet, Our Future, I also work at the Foundation for Climate Restoration on carbon removal advocacy, policy, and education, and want to see how we can shift the discussions towards how green water cools the planet and what a lot of us talk about in our work. I'm also on the leadership of the Hot Planet Repair team, and nice to meet you all and see how we can make this alliance grow and achieve the best possible impact. So thank you.
Thank you. So you don't know who came before you, so I'm now gonna grab the torch and pass it on to people. If you're new, Russ.
Hi, I'm Russ Spear. I'm in California, but in a few days I'm heading for New Mexico. We have some exciting, quite probable large-scale land restoration efforts that we're going to be talking about with the Hawaii tribe and some other people that are very, very well connected. I'm thinking of 3 different parcels actually. And there should be some things, Mikkel, starting pretty soon in California. So looking good, and I'll pass it to Jamaica.
Thanks, Russ. Yeah, can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thanks. Let's see. I have a lot of intersections. I'll try to keep it brief. In general, I feel like I'm a social ecologist working to sort of integrate living systems as part of the way that we operate our human systems. So I'm a big advocate of weaving together all of our various efforts. I'm a convener and a facilitator of several consortiums that are meeting, of which many of you are included, particularly focused on supporting the Regenerative Water Alliance effort. We have a forum in Regen Ag, food systems, and agroforestry that we're actually partnering with Harriet Brainerd to advance some symposiums and a summit later this year, working in the Amazon and working on some demonstration projects to support creating economic and training programs and grant systems to small shareholder farmers to sort of train and incentivize them to work on repair of particularly the highlands and the sort of Sacred Headwaters area in partnership with Triangle Foundation and the Global Forest Generation. And obviously I'm the co-founder of Open Future Coalition, and we have the Open Impact Platform, which several of you are exploring or stepping onto, just to provide more velocity of exchange between all these initiatives and efforts and groups and people, and create a tool for the measurement of our impact, and also the coordination between efforts, and sort of help raise the groundswell. Like Jake, a lot of my work is focused on how we sort of grow the capacity of the groundswell to be more resource mobilized, connected, and then tell the stories that are happening and amplify that through some of our media partnerships and sort of drive citizen campaigns and challenges back to restoration efforts on the ground. So I'm doing that in a lot of ways. I don't want to list all the ways, but I'm working with several of you and some other really interesting partners. I will say that we're working on a summit, as I mentioned, for September at the particular intersection of regen ag, food systems, community resilience, climate action, water, and what was the other one? And restoration. And part of that is to weave more quickly a lot of these efforts that right now people still aren't meeting quite fast enough. And so we realized it was a great opportunity to hold a series of sessions, keynotes, and work groups in September, just to sort of hyper network some connections we were seeing and have some shared relevant conversations, and then build energy towards Mike's Global Repair Summit later in the fall, so that we're sort of seeing these as connected events to mobilize the movement. So stay tuned for invitations to several of you to be keynotes or at least participants of those sessions in September. And that's probably plenty for now. I'm going to hand it on to my friend Ananda.
Sorry, I just arrived, couldn't get into the meeting, and what are we doing?
We're doing the usual, we're doing the round of introductions this time because it's been a while. We're catching up on everyone. So what's new, Ananda?
What's new? Just hopping around between ERA, RWA, and the Amazon swarm. Trying to figure out how all these things are going to fit together and align so that we're not so distributed all over the place. And I don't know who's already gone because I just got here.
Oh, that's okay. So among the old timers who haven't introduced themselves yet are Rob DeLate.
Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody again. I'm calling in from Stockholm. I booked the smallest room I can remember in my life because prices went pretty up. But anyway, I'm here for 5 days, and the first day was exciting. First of all, because I met somebody with whom I started an NGO, the World Climate School, 3.5 years ago, and after about 1,000 Zooms, we met for real. I met up with an indigenous leader who is part of Fridays for Future and in Brazil, with whom I hope to do something. And I hope to meet Katie and Sol, who are part of the Eco Restoration Alliance, live here tomorrow or Friday or something like that. And the nice thing is, okay, I'm busy together with many here in the group for the Amazon to avert the dieback, and part of what was learned there is applied in the Marshall Plan to cool the planet. And I'm going to pitch that on Friday evening to the Minister of Environment for Zimbabwe, who is interested. So I guess that's enough for now. And I also came in late, so I'm not sure who was there. So John, please help me.
Sure.
And
thank you.
John, could I just add one quick thing?
Of course.
To Rob's? So Rob and everyone, Rob and Atossa Soltani did an amazing, powerful presentation on the Life Saves the Planet series in April. Yeah. And WGBH, the public television network that we partner with on this series, has not produced the recording yet, but I'm after them to do so. There's a huge amount of interest. It's a really important presentation for everybody. So thank you, Rob.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Michael Pilarski.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here again with such a group. I have been having a private conversations lately with Jamaica and with Rob DeLate and Russ. And so that's been really helpful. We're still working towards the Global Earth Repair Summit. I won't say anything on that now, really, but stay tuned. Our Global Earth Repair Hall of Fame now has 150 different projects around the world and people who are spotlighted in that. So that's a really useful bit of work. And next week I am teaching my first ecosystem restoration course in person, hands-on. I'm looking forward to talking to Nancy about her workshops that she does. So I remain active, and that's good for now.
It's great for now. Philip. I'm sorry, we did Philip. Philip, we don't need to hear from you again. Thank you very much.
Charlie Shore, maybe?
Charlie Shore.
Yeah, hi. I live in Maryland, right next to DC. I was a toxicologist and a GIS analyst back in the life. And first of all, Adam and Paula, I apologize, but I've been having some terrible connection problems. I think I know why, but I have to call Verizon to get it straightened out. In any event, in the past couple of months, I took the path of of a permaculture design certificate, and I was working on a site near Bowie, Maryland, which was a perfect site, 1.5 acres of a site that had been destroyed by a winter storm, and taking the online coursework with Oregon State, and found out that their instructional material was about 6 versions old. And so I spent a lot of time trying to jerry rig and update it, and I finally just gave up on it. It was impossible. In any event, I've since rejoined B4C. And at this point, I am thinking of ways in which we can incorporate GIS into both of the groups. And I'll be getting a questionnaire out in the next couple of days. Now, I know, John, that you're working with a commercial firm on this.
Yeah, I actually would be happy to review our mapping activities in a few minutes, but go ahead, Charles.
So anyway, the software that I use is it's almost as powerful as what Esri puts out, and it's absolutely free. That's the good news. I'm a little rusty on it, so it'll take me a little while to come up to speed again, but that's kind of the direction that I'm heading.
Cool. Okay, thanks. Let's just finish the round of old timer introductions. Our newest old timer in the room is Judith Schwartz. And Judith, if you want to use this as an opportunity to jump ahead to the consensus process, that's okay too.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to do that. So for new people, my name is Judy Schwartz. I'm an author, written books on soil, water, and ecosystem restoration, narrative books that integrate science and stories. Because of the season, I've been doing a lot of eco restoration on a very small scale, trying to build biodiversity on our land here in Vermont. So what I've been, so parallel to these last several months as ERA has been growing, I've also been taking a, part of a consensus institute. So, which has given us the opportunity, with colleagues who all in the ERA who also, are involved in this consensus work. We brought this into ERA. So a few weeks ago, we just realizing that we could benefit from having more clarity about what this organization is about, and yet paradoxically, by trying to pin down say a mission statement, we miss all the potential that's might be in the room, but we haven't quite articulated. So to kind of open up the conversation and hear from everybody, hear from all people who couldn't join us. So we had this workshop, and that has led us now to the next step, which is because we all happen to be very chatty, so we were not able to get through 4 mega questions in 3 hours. So we're going to continue that. I have sent out a note, thanks to Cole, that invites people to express interest in part 2 of this workshop, after which we will have gathered together the materials and have something tangible to reflect back to the community. And then in that note, I also shared a couple of ideas of where else we can go with this. So inviting all into this exploration, this group exploration. And it's actually kind of powerful what's already been emerging. I only apologize that I needed to take a week off, and Jeff, who's the main convener, who's very experienced in this process, has been away for a couple of weeks, but we're getting on it. So if you're interested, please let me know and we will pin down a date on the calendar. I'm not sure if that answered questions that people may have. So, you know, when we get through the introductions, we can go back to it, or if this is the time, I'm happy to respond.
Well, I will say your email to the community did go out. I received it. I think it should probably also go out to the mailing list where I don't see it, so that it's there for posterity and so that people can comment to it there. I'm sure that Cole will take care of that if it's not done already. Yeah, I think many of us are impatient to move forward, but I think many of us feel that the session that we did do was very much worthwhile. And I, for one, it has stimulated a number of emerging ideas about who we are and what we might do. I'll talk about a few of those ideas when we're done with this round of introductions. But I think it's a really good time for people to begin floating their notions, recognizing that right now these are just individual contributions to the melting pot, and that we're hoping that the consensus process and the discussions that follow from that will boil them down into a delectable dish of soup, if you will. Okay. Marna, I think.
Just a quick question for Judy. Judy, I wondered when I saw your email, are the people who were there for the first consensus automatically being re-invited, or is the assumption that we'll be there?
That's a really good question. And I did not clarify that. It would be helpful to know for sure, because everyone's schedule is so, is so fluid that I don't want to make assumptions about who will be present without actually hearing. So thank you for clarifying that.
So Cole, when you forward it to the mailing list, you can put that update RSVP in there. Philip.
Yeah, so just to be clear, if you do want to participate, you should let Judy know that you do. And I will just take this moment to express deep gratitude for all the work that Judy and her colleagues have put into planning this, recording it, summarizing it, and preparing for this next phase. It's a huge gift. Thank you.
You're here. Marna.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. My name is Marna Schwartz. I'm in Albany, New York, ancestral land of the Haudenosaunee and Mohican people. Always happy to be with y'all. And it's interesting, discovering the different places and people that are like having these kinds of conversations and creating more and more of a fabric of community and alliance of, I like to call it oases of coherence. I was at one recently called Soulfire Farm, which was a super excellent place to be. And my biggest, I don't know, passion, I guess, that I'm applying myself into right now is helping, or at least professionally, is as a coach working with women and people of all genders around helping stop and reverse burnout. I see the burnout as symptom of the sort of extraction economy. And so I'm working at the scales of individuals, groups, companies, and collective consciousness to help normalize nurturance culture where people and places and creatures are all feeling well. So it's a little bit about what I'm about. I'm also looking for or looking toward creating or finding a community of about 100 people who want to live on the land together and create village. So please tune in with me, preferably around this area, but I'm also very interested in like-minded oases. So good to be with everybody. Thanks.
So you're planning 100-person something somewhere or in a known location?
So my personal context is that my dad is in Albany, New York, and I'm passionate to stay close enough to him to help and be family because that's important. And I'm aware that there's a eco villages at Ithaca. That's a little trek, and also they're well into their sphere of creation. And I'd be open and interested if people wanted to co-create something. Yeah, I'm going to check out what they're doing at some point. And I just feel this strong passion, especially as the supply chain is crumbling, that as many communities as possible should orient around creating a land-based experience where everything is primarily walkable, where people aren't necessarily locked in, but rather don't necessarily have reasons to want to leave, because why?
So if you're in Albany, that explains why you went to Soulfire Farm. I just want to mention that I reached out to them way back in the early days when Adam and Paula alerted me to Soulfire Farm. We are eager to have as much relevant diversity in the ERA as we can. And so everyone should feel free to invite anyone who you think would be benefit from and be able to make a contribution to the group that is becoming us. And you can just flag Cole or me to facilitate that process. But that's how our various new people have found their way to us. And I'll use that as a segue to begin introducing new people. I'm aware that Abby, who is particularly relevant to map making, hasn't had a chance to introduce herself yet. So I'll just do that, Abby.
Aparna.
Well, Aparna is new to us, right?
Okay.
So she comes up in a minute.
Okay, and Cole.
And Cole, who was first, Nancy, before you got here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Abby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby. As John said, I'm based in Massachusetts in the South Coast, really close to Rhode Island, and I'm currently the college outreach coordinator for Bio for Climate, mostly working in general outreach and youth outreach programming. And I'm very new to the ERA in terms of active participation, but have been listening to its journey and its creation during our leadership team meetings for Bio for Climate every Tuesday. So have been staying updated. And as John said, I'm hoping to get involved with the mapping / social media project, which I think will be talked about more later in this meeting. And it's nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you again here, Abby. So I want to, just because I know what other topics are going to be introduced, I want to take a moment, jump to another part of the agenda and share with you, oh, here comes a Brew Pierce, share with you an idea I've had for something that I think lies within the sweet spot of things we really ought to be doing. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute. So the critical thing I want you to see is that for some time I have had hello, this vision of,
Don, we're not seeing anything.
well, then I should try again. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. Imagine, if you will, a pale blue dot expanded to show the grandeur of your planet. And on it are a bunch of pinpoints, and each pinpoint is a story of a eco-restoration project or a mere mortal who has restored a few meters of land and is part of this process. And associated with that is a list of the people who've been added recently. And associated with that, and I'm not going to go into it in great detail, is a whole lot of people who we have found on social media and through our growing network of connections who have been describing their work in social media or elsewhere. That is, there's also this plan for making it easy for people who are saying, hey, look what I did in my own backyard or on my father's 40 acres, to tag one of our own social media accounts and for us to spread the word to other accounts, thus acting as the collective megaphone for each other. And of course, it's not unique to one platform. And the content that goes out on our social media sites is not just the posts of people who've tagged us, but also our own content as well as other content that resides on the Bio4Climate website. And by going to various groups like Pollinator Friendly Gardens or Water and Climate, we can find additional people who are doing the work that's going to save the planet, and we can add them to this map until eventually, goes the vision, almost everyone, almost everywhere is on the map, boasting their achievements and becoming part of the larger network that is going to restore the Earth. That's my story. And for the moment, I'm sticking to it. But I got to say that my initial notion that we'd sort of automate that process of spreading posts from one social media site to another is currently looking like it's unrealistic. So we also need to figure out how one of the things people in this movement do is to support that effort of spreading the word so that it doesn't all fall on one person. I mention that just because from day one, when we began competing for the X Prize and had the ambition of aggregating the achievements of all of our members onto one big map has been an important part of what we're doing. And One Big Planet is, I think, an important target for what we're doing. And so I just wanted to share that I'm continuing to work with a number of people, including Jamaica and Open Impact, looking again at Explorer.land. Abby and Charlie have experience with GIS systems, and the Just One Giant Labs group is organizing a conference that is in the mailing list to sort of discuss open databases that can aggregate this kind of information. And I think that that's, and again, this is just my particular story, but I think that that could be a key activity that will accomplish our dual goals of spreading the word of what our members are doing and allowing more and more people to be part of this movement. So a little story I wanted to tell. I have now told it. I'll take a few questions or comments or concerns, and then that will set the stage for introducing a few more people.
John, this is, oh no, I have my hand raised.
That's okay.
This is Charlie. Are you aware of that the Society of Ecological Restoration has a pretty extensive database of restoration sites?
I am.
Okay.
There are probably half a dozen map-based sites. Most of them in fact, to my knowledge, all of them, with the exception of one by David McConville, basically are cataloging their members' activities. What I really want to do is try to eliminate the membership requirement and simply say, look, if you have shown the world that you have been a part of the solution, we want to celebrate you. So it's sort of a news feed smeared all over a map so that people can say, what's happening near me? And hey, here I am. And what's happening in this part of the world to which I think I might like to travel, and so on. So the whole question of how do you aggregate this information? Official information of member projects within organizations and unofficial information about people who simply told the world that they're doing it is the idea and the challenge we have right now. And it's not at all solved, but it's someplace I'm trying to explore.
I'm just saying you don't have to reinvent the wheel, even though these other sites are showcasing work done by their own members.
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to invent any of this, I don't think, except possibly the process by which almost everyone, almost everywhere can be on that map.
Okay, thanks.
Philip.
I'd like to join your planning meeting around this because Lindsay Diaga and I are working on trying to establish some criteria. At the very least, it would be useful if there would be a way when sites are entered, if some of that criteria information could be included so that we have a way to filter things according to our particular view of the world.
That's great. And I know Jamaica has all sorts of things cooking on the Open Impact platform. My particular hunch is that there will be an open database accessible to lots of different mapping platforms and filterable and presentable in lots of different ways by different individual platforms. And that by doing that, we increase the possibility that there's one big source of data, think of it as Wikipedia, but many individual sites that can provide their own slices through that. And Jamaica points out that this is not a new idea, and she's already putting us in touch with a few of the people who are working on that. In fact, we're meeting with Brad DeGraff tomorrow, which is, I think, one of the relevant people Jamaica has put us in touch with. Let's go back now to, hello, Michael.
I just wanted to point out that when I looked at the Society for Ecological Restoration's list, once I got up to 1,500 projects that they had reported on, I gave up counting. So it is very substantial, but I don't know how to sort through it very well. So, but at any rate, just to point out, they have 1,500 at least projects listed.
Right. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to invite Aparna, who's dealing with patches of dirt all over the world, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me some time to chat with everyone and meet the whole group. It's been wonderful to hear about all the work everyone's been doing. So my name is Aparna. I am part of the Save Soil movement, which is an initiative with the Conscious Planet program with the Isha Foundation. So this is a global movement or a platform that we've been trying to create for two objectives. One is to raise global awareness about soil health. I know that there's a lot of folks who are specialists, very educated, people who have their hands in the dirt, who know and have been shouting about soil for decades now. But I think one area that this project was born out of was recognizing that there's a gap between global mass awareness about soil health and its importance and how it's interconnected it is with a number of the challenges that we're facing today, and the folks who are the experts, or perhaps maybe it's not accessible, maybe folks don't want to hear about it. There's a variety of reasons why there is this gap, right, between work that's happening and work that yet needs to be completed. So out of that movement out of that understanding or that idea is where the Save Soil movement was born. And it's the one, to raise awareness, like I said, and two, with the goal of creating institutional change or large-scale global change. So what we've been trying to do is connect with governments across the world in almost every single country we've been trying to reach out to try to establish some level of understanding or priority of soil health in their policymaking or whatever it is. And to that effect, we've been going on a 100-day journey from London to India, meeting with a number of heads of states, agricultural ministers, as well as folks outside of government, celebrities, leaders, influencers, et cetera, to help reach individuals that might not be plugged into the agriculture or ecological space, religious leaders, political leaders, artists, singers, just really anyone who we can yell about soil health to. So, John, did you have a question?
You haven't said it explicitly, but the Isha Foundation is the organization, and the trip from London to India is done by the person known as Sadhguru. So maybe you want to just remind those who haven't connected the dots between Isha and Sadhguru, how that all works.
Yeah, so Sadhguru, who's the founder of the Isha Foundation, wanted to embark on this journey as he just felt like this is one of our big issues of the day. So so thank you for clarifying that. I think I kind of skimmed over that at the very beginning. So that's a little overview of the project. We're on day 78, I believe now, of the journey, and he just entered India, I think 3 days ago. So we've met with folks across Europe. We had a lot of success with meetings in the Middle East, and we're also able to attend some of the international conferences like COP15 and the World Economic Forum, et cetera, over the course of the last 178 days, and are continuing to meet with leaders and such in India. So we're kind of building all this momentum, trying to create awareness about soil health. And we had a platform of about 30 million when we started, and have been able to expand that with, I think, a few 100,000 people signing up for constant updates or action items to raise awareness, which we're calling like Earth Buddies, who've gotten involved in the journey and in the program and in the rally itself. So we're really excited about the success we've had so far with creating awareness and reaching folks. But of course, we have a very high goal. Our goal is to reach 3.5 billion people, to make them aware of soil health being an important issue that hopefully folks will care about. And so to that extent, we're and also to connect with folks who are doing the work, we're looking to just explore relationships, build partnerships, connect with people who are doing the work on the ground in a variety of different ways. And we've been doing that throughout the journey. And luckily enough, John got in touch with us. And so that's how this connection came about. And I wanted to tell folks about the work we're doing, explore what it means to be part of the Eco Restoration Alliance, so that we can also get a feel for how the group works together, and the kind of work that folks here are doing, so that hopefully we can explore some sort of a sustainable long-term working relationship. Because I feel that, at least from the conversation I had with John, it seemed very aligned in our vision. I think, to briefly think about why this is important to us, we would say that soil health is important not just because it's attached to a number of issues that we're facing today, climate change or food security, et cetera, but it's also very much integral to what it means to be living on this earth, and human existence, as well as the existence of other creatures and life on this planet. So I think soil has a deep connection to who we are as beings, and you can take that, I think, as deep as you'd like to go. And fundamentally, if it's something that's being degraded, I feel like it has a huge impact on us as humans, as well as other life. So I think that core issue is where this came from, and we're just trying to take it up to fill in the gaps of where we can use our resources and energy.
Great to have you here. I had, during our initial conversation, I mentioned Jake Kelly, who is also, I don't think he mentioned it today, but he's also involved, last I heard, with a group of spiritual and religious leaders involved in climate issues. And here he comes to comment and elaborate on that possible connection.
Yeah, so our movement, called Our Planet, Our Future, is willing to work with lots of different stakeholders around various campaigns, but catalyzing 1.5 billion people over 10 years, working with business and civil society and lots of those faith-based organizations, communities and their assets too. So well, be interested in learning more. And thank you for presenting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm open to connect or chat or, about any of the things I've said so far. Like I said, it definitely isn't a sprint, although we have been working on sprint mode in the last 78 days. But I think it really takes, building partnerships and connections to work towards such a large goal that's in the billions, right? So
Yeah.
happy to talk about whatever that could look like.
And you did say 30 million humans are already affiliated with it, Isha?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we're at like 300,000 that have, actively taken a step to be connecting or taking a few minutes every day to learn about the issue and post about it or share with someone else, different action items that we've asked people to take. So 30
great.
million at least passive and a few 100,000 that are very active in their engagement.
All right, cool. So we all are exploring how we will work together, but I have to say it's already proven to be the case that these encounters and relationships are an important function of the ERA. So whatever else we end up doing, this is part of what we do.
Yeah, sounds good.
So our other newcomer, who I met within the last week, I think, is Brew Pierce, who's got also a grand vision and an interesting background, and is our newest member candidate, who, if there are no objections, will be a just plain member within a matter of days, because that's how our process works. And Bruce, do you want to just sort of give us some background on you and yours?
Well, okay. Thank you for inviting me. Nice to meet you all. I just dropped in. Yeah, Envisionation, my company, we've been working for about the last 12 years or so. Our space is joining the dots, understanding the whole Earth system. If you don't know how it works in the first place, you don't know how badly broken it is. And if you don't know how fully broken it is, you can't fix it. The fact that we're in this position means that human societal structures are not fit for purpose, because we're running ourselves into corporate Earth type bankruptcy. We worked on understanding how the biosphere was created, how it functioned prior to significant human impacts, and we boiled that down to a disruption of natural nutrient cycles. So 3.8 billion years of evolution, life, interconnected DNA created this membrane around the lump of space junk we call Earth, constantly evolving, becoming ever more complex. So it's life that is the engine, and we've therefore focused on living carbon, differentiating it from carbon in other places, but the carbon that is in any form of life, viruses, bacteria, fungi, plants, animals, all the way through. It's the carbon that's actually working, it's been part of the system. Life works to colonize and stabilize. Now, the unfortunate thing about the human impact is that we have reduced the total amount of life on the planet by more than 50%. So 10,000 years ago or so, there would have been 1,100 gigatons of carbon in living things, and now we're down to about 550. An interesting sum, because if you were to return the 550 gigatons of life to bring us back up to 1,100 gigatons, you would have drawn down enough atmospheric carbon allowing also for off-gassing from the oceans, and committed to emissions to take us back to around 280, 300 parts per million. So absolutely at the core of what you're all talking about, restoration of life and large-scale environmental restoration and restoration of the oceans and soils, really in the sweet spot. So, I mean, having identified how it worked, what was broken, and what was wrong, the next thing is to try and identify a target. And we have a target that's represented in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And those call for 8.5 to 9 billion people living well, should we say, by 2050. So that's what you've got to produce a plan to get to. And that actually requires us to take very significant control of the biosphere. Bob Bishop, who I work with at the International Center for Earth Simulation, uses the word chaperone. We need to be chaperones of our own home. I think it is a fact that mankind couldn't tolerate the descent into the next ice age, which we should be about a degree, maybe a degree and a half of cooling into. We've made a massive overcorrection. So we are going to manage our climate one way or another, and by restoring it, that's what we're doing. And if you look at all living things go out and, as I say, they colonize and stabilize. That is the action of plants on the side of a river. It's the progression of into any space. And that happens through cycling of nutrients and the constant buildup of more complex molecules. An example of how this has gone wrong is humans taking the large mammals and the big fish out of the oceans, which were essential to recycling nutrients. So whale poo was vital to phytoplankton, and the phytoplankton was vital to the zooplankton to the fishes, and so forth all the way through. There are nutrient cycles that occur, such as Sahara dust, which blows out, and you hear people talking about that. The thing is that when you've got a healthy biosphere and a healthy ecology, the dust that lands in the middle of the ocean gets captured and it remains in circulation because the animals and the plants are there hanging onto it. When you destroy that, a lot of that dust just sinks through the water column and it doesn't have time to recover. So one of the things we're looking at is ocean fertilization by buoyant flakes. A chap called Sev Clark, brilliant fellow. He wants to take rice husk, lignin, and mineral tailings to make little cornflake size flakes to scatter on the ocean surface, which will make the necessary minerals bioavailable in a very targeted way, as a nice way of nursing that phytoplankton back into life, the diatoms, and allowing the ecologies to build up. It's a very clean solution. Same holds true of what we do with the landside restoration. So, for instance, the North African forests that ran all the way along the Mediterranean coast 1,500 to 2,000 years ago, they require a huge amount of irrigation to bring that back. I know some of you are connected to the Weathermakers team and the idea to try and regreen the Sinai Peninsula. So we're looking at very large scale land restoration. And I come back to what I was saying about 8.5 or 9 billion people on the planet living well. One of the impacts of that is a huge growth in global GDP. And the reason I focus on that is we're going to need big business to get heavily involved in the work that has to be done, and we have to get on with it in a hurry. Large scale projects for irrigation require huge amounts of energy. So the investment's got to go into the right place. This means we've got to deal with the big banks, the big insurance companies, and we've got to get some of those large-scale projects moving. I've described a situation where I'm talking about large-scale environmental restoration, tinkering with the system. And if you're going to manipulate the system, all right, I won't say tinkering, I'm talking about manipulation. You really, to be responsible, you've got to have very good monitoring, data, and feedback on what you're doing. So I've been working with Bob Bishop of the International Center for Earth Simulation, and he and I have been chatting for 8-9 years now. That effort is a quantum computing project to bring all of the planetary data together, all of the satellite data, the agricultural data, the financial data, to build a whole model of the whole Earth system. And from that, the creation of a dashboard. Now, the proposition that we're putting together in Visination is to build a base carbon, living carbon account as a measure of the health of the planet. So we're at 550 gigatons in deficit, and all of the work that you're doing, the interrelated companies and people we're involved in, are doing work to restore life, and we need to be able to measure that. So the ultimate aim will be to have the whole surface of the planet recorded on the blockchain, and the living carbon on every square meter of the planet recorded in that. And it won't just be square meter, it'll be larger areas, but the principle is there. So that we have a base measure of the health of our planet to pin all the other carbon accounting systems too, because at the moment they're out there floating amorphous. And I think this is one of the reasons why the clean development mechanism really struggled and didn't get off the ground, and where there's still quite a mess in the carbon accounting systems. But it is critical we get into a position where we're able to account for our actions honestly. And I would suggest that all accounting, financial management of the planet at the moment is frankly fraudulent, because we have vast unfunded liabilities, externalities that are not accounted for, i.e. the cost of the damage we've done, the cost of the pollution in the air and the oceans. So we need an accounting system which is accurate, where we recognize the true cost, true value of everything. And that means the person who is working on a small holding, improving their soils, being highly productive, producing the rest of it, gets properly paid for that. It means that when the agrotech industry starts growing huge vats of algae, which they're using to feed to synthetic meat, and they produce just the muscle, no cruelty, but it's the fish and the chicken and the beef, which will be better quality potentially, without some of the unpleasant additives, the antibiotics and other bits and pieces that come through the food, and a third the price. And it's going to put the South American beef farmers out of business. But when they go out of business, they've got to be in a position where they're paid to replant Amazon forest and restore great prairies with natural grasses with deep roots, and get paid for restoring those soils. So that's the big vision. How to pull all that together, and it's an idea that I've put together in our biosphere restoration plan, which we've been putting out there, and I think you've got a copy of it available now. So
you do.
I posted a link in the chat.
Yeah.
Where are you located?
I'm located in England, in South Devon, in the south coast of England.
Yeah.
So,
so
we're making some progress. We're making waves. I was in London at a focus group organized by Interbrand, which is the world's largest branding company. And that focus group was about how to rebrand, message climate change, and a product that's being created for the global brands, for the Microsofts and the Alans and the Panasonics and the Kias of this world.
Mhm.
It's an interesting initiative. Very, very early days, but certainly that thinking is part of the influence. So there we go.
Well,
questions?
Optimistic grandiosity is refreshing. And I look forward to continuing these conversations. I think it's really a very rich vision and lots of really great connections. I personally really like this index of biomass, living carbon, as the ultimate criterion. It's got a certain poetry to it, and I think it's much smarter than, for example, just talking about carbon molecules coming out of the air. And if everything was measured up against that in an open playing field, we might really get somewhere. Any other questions or comments for Bruce before we move on to other items?
Yeah.
Michael, mute.
I just watched a video today of a Catholic bishop or cardinal warning the world that there is a engineered global famine in the works. I don't know if anybody's come across that information, and of course it's a conspiracy theory that there would be a engineered global famine. But if such a thing did happen, it would really throw a lot of wrenches in the gears of all this planning, and including ours. So just to point out that there's a lot of planning going on in the world.
He may be right. Putin is potentially applying famine pressure on the West to get what he wants. So the grain that was supposed to come out of Ukraine would have been going into Somalia and other African countries. And I know this because I'm talking to a girl at UNDP, this is on the food side, and they've got a real problem because they haven't got access to that. And Putin's actions are preventing that. Now, I mean, NATO, UK and France have been talking about putting ships into the Black Sea to break the blockade over what's the port there? Name will come back to me. Odessa, where that grain is normally shipped out of. So, yeah, there is there's a grain of truth in those things happening, and the developing global food crisis that is happening now and will become more acute as we get more and more extreme weather situations is, I believe, the first thing that we're really going to be faced with, on top of potentially some extreme heat events.
Judy?
Yeah, just, very sparked by this concept of global biomass as a metric. And there's a book that I'm reviewing. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Wildlife in the Balance: Why Animals Are Humanity's Best Hope. And it's all about the nutrient cycle and how nutrients, seabirds and, like all of those dynamics. I mean, when you think about how much carbon is embodied in a whale, I know that you mentioned whales, but this book makes the connections between life, between animals, birds, and climate so vividly. So I need to write a blurb for this, and oh, John, you're totally on that. Wow, I didn't. So, and I'm thinking, I'll bring Simon into these conversations because he's kind of ripe to really chat about it. He's been a researcher for decades, and now he's got this book coming out, and he wants to be part of conversations. So, one just thing I'll just put out there, I haven't looked at this closely, but just personally, and having written a book about soil and involved in lots of conversations, and concerned about a lot of agri-tech as tempting but ultimately false solutions. But I'd have to look at things really, really carefully to know, when to, encourage more questioning. So thanks, but really, it's a really, life. I mean,
There is a slide in that deck of mine that shows the destruction of the nutrient cycles and the loss of it, and it's colossal. We're talking 70, 80% in terms of fish going up rivers and bears eating them and shitting in the woods and lost passenger pigeons and other things that were carrying bits and pieces to and fro.
Yeah, no, it's just stunning that until recently, and even still, our conversations about biodiversity have been about, an appealing, charismatic, creature. Anyway, just interesting. Thanks.
So you all got the short form of Bru's presentation. I witnessed the long form a couple of months ago and was incredibly inspired by the richness of thinking that he had brought to it. I commend the document, the restoration plan. I think it's nearly 100 slides, very detailed, lots of useful graphics and information. And I'm glad, I know Bru is bringing a perspective that's not predominant amongst our alliance so far from the business world, except for perhaps John. But I think we do need, as he said, to bring in the big corporations to play in this if we are to have a chance in the time frame we have remaining to make a difference. So we have to hone our message to be attractive to the business sector, to the international finance, insurance companies, et cetera, because their future is on the line as well as ours, and we need to figure out how to work together. So welcome, Bru.
Welcome, Bru. And by the way, welcome, Bru, not Bruce, as I said earlier.
That's okay, don't worry.
Our last newcomer is John Spencer, who I know from some years ago when he took an interest in Enable. He paid me a visit in Rochester a week or so ago, and we toured High Falls, where I'm engaged in a quixotic battle to get a green corridor going up the city into a wilderness park in the city. He gave me some good ideas, which we're making some headway on. And now, John, it's your chance just to introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm a Canuck, to let you know where I'm coming from. And thank you, John. This is one of the first times I haven't been called an old timer in a while. So, so thank you for that. But my career has been, just to give you a very brief background, I've been in IT. I was a programmer to start off with, or as a coder, as they call it now. And my final position was an executive director with Oracle. So speaking of large companies. And my final role was a strategist with Oracle, looking at how to beat the competition, if you will, and send out the correct messages about the value of the technology that we're bringing to bear across the world. And I ran consulting departments in IT, both here and in the US. I have a business intelligence focus and background most of my career, database background. So maybe my timing in this whole ERA initiative couldn't be better. I'm absolutely delighted to be here and share some things with you. I spearheaded I'm industry agnostic, if you will. I spearheaded initiatives in state of Florida Medicaid, state of Hawaii for healthcare, Wells Fargo Bank in Des Moines, Iowa, and I took a client relationship management solution for Chrysler around the world. So I'm very used to scaling and looking at things from a global perspective as ERA and all the people here are doing. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity to contribute some of that information and that knowledge base that I have for the greater good. In terms of ecology and the environment, I used to be a training officer with the Department of Agriculture, so I've got some of that in my kit bag as well. I was a founding member of the Friends of Simcoe Forest up here trying to save a forest. And getting close to the dirt, I started a winery and a vineyard from scratch. I needed to consume a lot of wine to get through it all, but it lasted for 10 years up in the Great White North, as we call it, in a very harsh climate. So I got a firsthand lesson in driving a tractor and digging my hands in the dirt. So I love IT. I love what's happening here. I love bringing solutions to the world. I love figuring out how to scale things. So I can't wait to start working with John and each of you in some of your initiatives and helping to bring it all together in some way, shape, or form. So thank you, John, and great to meet you all.
Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you.
A reminder that links to more information about all of our new candidates and our coming candidates, including Gregory Landua of Regen Network, who we met with this morning and who will be joining us in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. Links to our conversation, our preliminary conversations with them, and the background to them, and for that matter, Bru's highly recommended 100-slide presentation can all be found in the agenda document, which probably brought you to this meeting. So this is the tip of the iceberg, but the iceberg is getting pretty big. There's a lot of good stuff to work with. We have 2 more things on the agenda, 2 more major things, and I think I'd like to take them in order. So before Nancy talks to us, I want to talk about our relationship with what I have been calling our sponsor, Bio4Climate, and which henceforth I will be calling our co-founder. Adam, I see that you've unmuted yourself. Do you want to frame this conversation?
Well, I think that we started off, John came to us out of the blue and was curious about what we were doing and was looking for a place in it, and discovered a potential connection with the X Prize and its attraction for its gazillion-dollar grants, which we found of interest, but mostly we were interested in finding a platform for the eco-restoration efforts that were going on in the world so that they would become more front and center on the global stage and the global climate and other conversations. And John set off to have people join in that effort, not necessarily to win $1 million, although we wouldn't have refused it, but to build a global platform. And as with so many great efforts, you start off doing one thing and it evolves, at least in part, into something else. And I think that's what's happened here. So John has taken this organization, the Eco-Restoration Alliance, which originally we framed as a project of biodiversity for a livable climate, and has turned it into something that is very much its own thing. And as we can all testify to here today, it's become quite a thing. And we look forward to becoming even more, thingier. John has done a great job, and Bio4Climate has been a sponsor. So we've supported the ERA efforts to the tune of, I don't know, $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And at this point, two situations have kind of merged. One is that Bio4Climate as an organization is under a lot of pressure. We have a small staff, and it needs to do more than it can. So we need to expand our staff. And the Eco Restoration Alliance is in very good shape, and it looks like it's ready to stand on its own financial feet. So we are its fiscal sponsor and have been its financial sponsor, and we need to back off being its financial sponsor and put our resources, our limited resources, towards beefing up our own staff. And ERA is in a very good position to start supporting itself, I think, with the amazing group of people that has been collected. So we are planning on, we're still a co-founder and will be a member for a very long time, and we can remain fiscal sponsor, but we can't be the source of income. So ERA has a number of expenses, like most notably Cole's salary, but other needs like website production, and I'll let John speak to that. So we're going to, in a reasonably paced way, withdraw our financial support, fully expecting that the resources that the ERA has brought together at this point, the people and the organizations will, in some manner or form, over the next couple of months, come up with a plan for providing ERA with its own source of income. So,
Okay.
And I just have to say, it's been a great honor and an educational experience and all kinds of other things, having had this relationship to date, and of course, continuing on into the foreseeable future. And that future, by the way, thanks to today's conversations, is becoming more foreseeable to me.
All right then. Well, so thank you, Adam, and thank you, Bio for Climate, for getting us where we are now. I got this news a mere 2 hours ago, but I'm already getting used to it, and I actually think it's a healthy development. What it does mean is that in order to keep Cole on board, who is the major expense, it is time for us to do something we've talked about a long time, which is to see if we can't find some donors to help us continue to do what we're doing. I think the good news is that one Cole goes a long way and has gone a long way, and almost everybody in this meeting is here to testify to that. So I want to alert everyone that it's a really good opportunity to be thinking about who might want to support the continued growth and evolution of Eco Restoration Alliance. I can also say that tax-deductible donations can already be made, and we'll put this in some formal writing somewhere, but they can already be made by donating to our former sponsor and current fiscal sponsor, Bio for Climate, earmarking it for Eco Restoration Alliance, and it will go into a dedicated bank account. And as per other routine fiscal sponsorship alliances between a registered 501c3 and a non-501c3, Bio for Climate will do the bookkeeping, they'll file the taxes and the paperwork, they'll handle the bank accounts, and they will take a fee, which I don't think we've pinned down, but I told Adam that I do this for Enable for 7.5% with Rochester Enable Limited. But I also, before that, we had a third-party group doing it for Enable at 10%. And I suspect Adam would be more comfortable with 10%, and I will too. But all of this raises to the surface the notion that just as we are beginning to get clearer about some of our key functions, just as we're beginning to get clearer about our consensus process and who we are, just as we're making friends in high places, some of whom we've met today, we're also going to have to organize enough of a governance process and enough of a funding mechanism in order to continue growing and developing the network. I know several of you know people who might want to support something like this. And I think we actually have enough mileage to be able to talk to people about the kinds of things we have done, the kinds of connections we have made, and the kinds of things we think we can do while growing the network. Any comments or questions or concerns about that turn of events? Needless to say, I would welcome calls and emails from potential funding partners, and we'll be happy to field them. I don't think it needs to be said, but I'm here. Many of us are here as volunteers. But one thing I have learned is that there are some things that volunteers can't do or won't do or shouldn't do. And it's the regular, responsible work, like the kind of thing I can ask Cole to do, which is a worthwhile thing to pay for. And so that, in a sense, means that if we want someone like Cole on board, we're going to need to come up with some tens of thousands of dollars. I think that is, and this is just my thought, that it is in our manifest destiny to have some discretionary funding that we can use to manage projects, used to fund projects, so which would be both proposed and approved by our members. If, as we clarify our sense of who we are and how we work, that becomes true, that means there's no upper limit to the amount of money we might accept, but I'm not actually in a hurry to become a huge funding organization. I would like, however, to begin the process of having some control of our own financial destiny, and I think we're in a good position to do that. Any comments or questions about that? Okie dokie. Oh, there, Philip Bogdanoff.
So John, a number of people stepped forward, it's probably a couple months ago, to focus on the financial aspect of ERA. We need to kind of alert others to how to be in touch or involved with that group and figure out when the next meeting is. I don't think they've met in a while, but
No, that's right.
it's a logical fallout from this announcement.
Well, that's right. I should say it would be wonderful for someone to say, I will lead the charge on this financial infrastructure for ERA. You don't have to do it right here, right now, but you're welcome to. By default, it will be me, and I will begin to organize some discussions around that. Okay. On the agenda, there is garn.org, which I don't frankly remember. Well, it's an Artists for Amazonia event, but since we didn't identify who's going to talk about it, I'm not sure. But Nancy Wood wanted to talk about efficiency and purpose, I think purpose of the ERA.
Okay, thanks, John. Judith, this falls in line with the concerns that you've had and that you've been working on. Unfortunately, I've not been able to be part of much of the discussion about the consensus work that's been done, but I am concerned about our spending a lot of time continuing thinking about consensus and how we come to it. This could take a very long process. I think the fact that all of these organizations have come together and agreed to be connected with ERA already is a form of consensus. And it's a matter of our thinking about what other consensus are we really looking for. All of us are very busy. Every organization, every individual in this group is very busy doing their own thing. And those things are very diverse from each other. And I'm concerned that we end up spending a whole lot of time away from some of the other work that we're trying to do and be working on trying to figure out what consensus we need to have. I don't know what the consensus is that we want to be developing, other than the fact that we're all together and have agreed to be together and to share information with each other. So if this consensus process continues, I would like to know what kind of deadline is being placed on this, so that we don't end up talking about this 6 months from now. So those are my concerns. I'm just, I don't have anything against consensus. I like consensus, but I do think that a lot of times, a great deal of time can be spent trying to come to a certain point, and we have lost momentum in other ways by doing that. So, Philip?
So I've said this at previous meetings. I was deeply affected by the listening process that we engaged in. And I think there's an essence to it that is key to our development as a movement that's related to how we listen to each other, how we listen to the natural world. So we've all grown up in a largely westernized culture that has, goals and business meetings and agendas. And I think while those tools are useful, we are being called to be a different way. And so I would ask that we honor the listening process that Judith and Jeff and others have started. I think it is a key component of how we relate to each other, how we be in the world as an alliance, and that it doesn't necessarily end. There's not necessarily a goal of this. It's the way, it's training ourselves to be in a different way as we work together.
Okay.
I'm going to invite Ananda to jump ahead of me. Her hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that yes, the consensus process does take a lot of time. And perhaps we can't go through that type of extensive consultation for every issue that needs to be considered. And I do think, as Philip said, that it is important to develop some type of a governance process that does involve gathering opinions from the membership, so that it isn't one small clique of people that is making all the decisions. And I think that there's different ways that that could be done. I participated in a process that was done by the government of Manitoba on sustainability within that province, which involved consultations. It involved, a process of, asking questions, defining an issue, and then sending out questionnaires to all the membership, and then harvesting the answers, organizing that into some form. There could be some type of a committee that could help with a process like that. But I do think it is really important that whatever that process is, that it does always involve listening to our members, whether that's like we did in the consensus process, reaching out to interview a cross-section of people, convening meetings or whatever, that I think that we really do need to devise some type of process so that in big decisions, we're making the decision collectively with a good cross-section of the membership, and not as a small kind of clique that organizes and structures things on their own.
I guess my question is, what kind of decisions are we thinking about that's requiring this? Judith, you had your hand up. John, you had your hand up first, but I think maybe Judith.
I agree. Judith should go next.
Okay, yeah. Just to clarify, there is no reason that that needs to, that, you know, the fact that we're going through this process needs to put a stop or a halt to any work that any other people are doing, and that no one is required to come to the meetings. There's been one meeting so far, you know, one kind of pre-meeting when we were having a conversation about what we might do. And, you know, as I wrote in the note, you know, part of the delay I take responsibility was I needed a week off, and it happened to be about the first time since I've ever known Jeff that he took a 2-week vacation. But once, so that is a delay, and that just happens, is that once we do the next meeting, again, no one is required to take their time to go to do that. What will emerge from that is a consensus statement drawn on all of the responses. That can be something of a guidepost to what people are holding as their vision for a mission for the organization, sort of culled from all the conversations and responses. That will be part of it. And then in the next workshop, which could be as early as next week, you know, depending on how it flows, we will look at what behaviors and beliefs and strategies and actions will help us to move towards that vision that we have. And that in itself will be a collectively derived kind of code of behavior and strategic plan. So, it will yield something. And whether, that is the best that this, anyway, it's there for us. So there we are, we can make an effort to include everybody, but nobody is required to. So, but the people that do join, it is an understanding that it is in service to the organization. So.
I guess I would say that, like Nancy and some others, I'm antsy and eager to proceed. But I agree that the process itself has been really helpful and informative. And I do want to assure Nancy that I, at least, am not waiting, except with regard to things that we say or do on behalf of the Alliance as a collective. The kinds of decisions that have to emerge, and in some ways they can emerge, the consensus process simply sets the stage for it, is how do we make decisions? Do we vote? Is it a majority vote? What is it we actually think is our core set of beliefs? Those are going to have to be identified. And this process is a way of doing it. And I don't know any other bootstrapping process by which we can all collectively feel that we're on the same page. But meanwhile, I have a list that I've begun to develop of the things we have already done. As I described, I actually have a proposal that I will put forward for how we might vote ourselves into existence. I've written any number of vision statements, which I would be happy to have the entire group either accept or reject. But we're going to want to converge on a few fundamentals of that sort. But meanwhile, we're all doing lots of valuable and important things. And I'm not sure that we're slowing ourselves down. I will say I have had the experience in Enable of having a few people say, we know what the group wants, let's just do it. And it nearly killed the organization. It led to a year in which people who felt they had been left out of the process thought that there was some elite cabal trying to do things independent of them, and it almost killed us. So, it's possible that by walking a little bit more slowly, you actually get to the destination faster than by sprinting down the wrong alley and then finding yourself in big trouble. That's all I wanted to say.
Paula?
So I certainly share concern about being an organization that would have to go back to the consensus process for everything that needs to be decided. But I don't think that that's what the intention is.
No, it's not.
It does suggest to me that we have to be clear about what the end point might be. I don't know. But I really have particularly valued the consensus process for being able to focus on how do we make sure that we're a truly representative group of all of the organizations that are out there promoting and doing eco-restoration work. So, I think that the consensus process will allow us to, if not bring in during that process, certainly focus on, as a result of the process, making sure that we have more faces and voices from Indigenous members, from members in the Global South, however we want to define this. But I think that's really essential. And I think the consensus process can help us focus on that as well. So,
Deb?
With an organization that includes so many members from around the globe, particularly folks that are engaged on the ground and aren't coming to meetings like this, I think one of the key pieces of that triggered a consensus process is moving to a place of understanding how do we make sure we hear all of the voices with things that ERA wants to represent. Certainly there's things that can be done. John maybe framed it a little bit better. I mean, I think John said it, when there's decisions about the types of things we want to do where we want members involved and hearing their voices. I think that that's part of it too, is the question of what is ERA and what is ERA about, and what kinds of things do you want to do? And what does that organizationally look like? Particularly when you start talking about bringing in funding, and how do you want to use the funding, and are you going to distribute funding? Whose voices are the ones that should be making those decisions, and how should that be made? So it's some of the new organizational context. And I think a number of us too we're in that place of how do we also engage groups like this in a way that is more living systems oriented, so that you get decision-making feeding in that doesn't have to be a slow process, but you have a decision-making structure where people feel like they can feed in and give their voices to that process. The other thing I would say that got me involved a number of years ago in facilitation and collaborative development was actually being involved with projects that would get stopped because, just as John said, a well-meaning group would be carrying an awesome project forward, but they missed engaging a group early on, and it would get stopped because that group then said, our voices haven't been heard, or misunderstand what the project's about. So, speaking from seeing how things have gotten done, there is a bit of the move slow to move fast, and giving a process time, but it does feel like there's things that can be moving forward as ERA is going without, while the consensus process is happening. But I was hopeful that the consensus process would move us into a place of looking at decision-making and governance types of systems that could help ERA as a whole make decisions, because personally, even as a member, I mean, so now I'm showing up once every 6 weeks, and so this group, whoever's here, hears me, but there isn't any really a lot of decisions are made that I'm not involved in. So it is kind of weird. And this is the volunteer thing. I don't really feel like I have a voice other than showing up at a meeting and giving my opinion, but there isn't any way to contribute in anyway. And it's that whole balance of what's the structure and how do we work as a group? Even volunteers that want to show up and contribute, how does that happen other than showing up at a meeting when it works for your time zone?
Yeah. John? You're on mute.
So I predict, so two points. One is that the gathering that we did have, which those of us who attended, most of us found very valuable, was not fully representative either of the entire alliance or of the people we would like to have in the alliance. We're going to want to address that. I think we're going to want to make sure that everyone who's already in the alliance understands that they are urged and welcome to attend, and reach out to make sure in particular that those who may not be able to show up for these meetings have that message also. Secondly, I also predict and would urge that whatever process we have, not of governance process, not depend on people attending these meetings, which are hard to attend. We'll have some kind of a mechanism, probably involving a mailing list or a system that I've used in the past for sort of consensus-based voting that will allow us that will allow anyone who's affiliated with the alliance to weigh in and be a part of these discussions. These roundtables or these town hall meetings will simply become opportunities for those who can and want to meet face to face and explore the issues. But I think that assuming that we're going to have binding votes of some sort, it will have to draw from the entire group. And hopefully we will also have some guidelines in place for making sure that as more and more people join the entire group, we'll know who we are and therefore who we wish to expand the mandate to.
Yeah. Marna? Marna?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm just listening in and I'm just feeling like this, I shared concern, like, oh yeah, like how much are we going to talk and so forth. And I'm thinking about my membership in the Global Regeneration Collab, which is sort of very open-handed membership insofar as that it's like very decentralized. There's a lot of open kind of space, and there's an invitation to bring ideas forward that to the community. But in terms of like making a decision as a community, I don't know that we even necessarily try. Not that we're not open to hearing what the members have to say, but like there's a certain amount of sort of trust in the organizing stakeholders. And I feel like that would be a helpful lens, like just to start framing maybe certain kind of transparent circles, to borrow a sociocracy term, like a transparent circle as a committee for doing XYZ, to whom the rest of the membership kind of trusts that will happen. Otherwise, especially with the continued growth, I don't see a real what's the word I'm looking for, easy road or even possible road to having everybody on board really for anything decision wise. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm going to speak now, if I may. I think that it's really important for all of the members of ERA to get a survey whereby they indicate what they would like to see ERA about, why they feel they want to be part of it, to have a whole series of questions that could be surveyed, could be collected, and it would be a possibility for everyone, every member, to have input into what their vision for the future is. I know that it's very hard to get everybody together for various reasons, especially the time zone differences. But I do think it's absolutely critical, if we're serious about talking about consensus, that we not depend on these kinds of meetings to be developing that consensus, that we need to have a survey where we're getting some critical information from all of the members, and then those who are able to come together, who want to come together, go through that and come to an understanding of this is what the membership is thinking about, wanting to do, seeing as its membership affiliation with this organization. And I would be willing to work on a survey.
That's the phrase I was looking for. Okay, I think that would be great. Judith, do you think that interferes with Jeff's process, the consensus process, in any way?
You know, I would say it's different. And, you know, when you were describing a survey, you know, a few things came to mind. One is that that is a time intensive process to develop a survey with meaningful questions. It's another thing going to people, you know, that may or may not fill it out, etc. But just to, you know, I mean, just that it is another thing, you know, that would take time.
Mhm.
But in a way, it's a different process, because what we've been doing is, you know, it's not only, it's what emerges in relationship, you know, with the groups. People, you know, we all haven't really had a chance to meet each other and talk. So it's, the questions that we address are designed in a way that does build trust. And, you know, of course, it's what people bring to it. But that's part of it. And it's with an understanding that the relationship, building the relationships is the work and facilitates the capacity for work to be done. So that is just what this particular approach is. And in terms of an endpoint, it's more that that dealing with different kinds of topics, whether it's diversity, whether it's something that I'm particularly excited about, doing the impossible, because I've seen, you know, barriers just, you know, dissolve, you know, fears just dissolve. And, you know, that to me is very powerful. It's available to us. And that's really all. You know, I'd say it would be, it would not make sense to not finish the next workshop, which is the balance of the questions. And then we'll see. It's just out there, and that the facilitators have made it clear that they are willing to do this with us without charge. And that's meaningful.
It's meaningful, and it's a gift, and they're valued collaborators. And I don't think even Nancy is suggesting that we don't continue the process. Personally, whether it feeds into the consensus discussions or not, I think that a survey is a great idea to see how many of our members we can get readings on. And if Nancy will help us formulate it in such a way that she feels we're collecting the data she likes, I'll match her hour for hour in trying to make that happen. And when I show up at the consensus meeting, if I have results from that, I will feel that it's partly who I am to try to channel the views that have come in and see if we can reconcile them.
I would like for Cole to work on this if Cole is willing to.
Oh, I thought that was a given.
Yeah,
okay.
I did too.
Okay. Just checking in, Cole.
Amanda?
Yeah, we did have a governance committee, which kind of got aborted because Annika, who was facilitating and took spearheading the organization of it, had personal issues and needed to withdraw. So But I think it would be a really good idea because the consensus process was just one part of what we came up with in that committee. And, you know, we're in it, but there was also talk about holacracy or sociocracy or
Right.
different types of structures, which I think we do need a governance committee to make some proposals and then put those out to the rest of the organization and see where we go from there. I think there's be a lot of committees and in a holacratic process, you know, there's ways for people who are working on different issues to form committees and then report back to the group and, you know, put into place some type of structure where there are committees who work on different things, they report back, and then there are issues where the whole group needs to be consulted and sounded before decisions are made.
Yeah. ERA,
Cole?
Cole?
Thank you. I just wanted to add on to what Ananda was saying and remind those who may not remember that one of the original structures we talked about for the ERA was exactly what Ananda was just saying, is that we would have subgroups and working groups that would handle specific topics. And we had started to do that with things like the Boulder Initiative, where we would reach out to Boulder, Colorado after the wildfires. We had one going with the X Prize working group. And then we, at these town hall meetings, members of those groups could report in on what's going on, update on what's happening, and present items that might need to be voted on or processed. So that was an idea that we had that I believe most, if not everybody, was on board with, that just kind of went by the wayside as we went off on different tangents.
Yeah.
And I saw Ananda for the first time since those days, just today. So she may be back in the game. And I saw Annika for the first time today. So she may be back in the game. And especially if someone like Ananda were to say, I'll help revive the governance process, I think it's a good moment. And it should converge, hopefully, with the consensus, which should provide a mandate for that. And the governance group may provide some models for the consensus discussion to think about, depending on how the timing works.
Paula? You're
Paula's on mute.
Yes, I was just in touch with Annika, and I do think she is ready to come back too.
That's great.
Which is wonderful. And I was just going to offer that I would really like to see the questionnaire as it develops, both the consensus process and the finding out what a very multifaceted organization wants to do are both things that I've done in my lifetime and that I enjoy being a part of. So, yeah. So
Okay.
thanks. I'm volunteering for that too.
You're on the list. Thank you.
Cole?
Oh, I was just going to say that we are 5 minutes past 5 at this point. And so what I can do is, with my follow-up email that I usually send out, I'll also put forth that we are having this little group that is working on a survey, and anybody who would like to volunteer can just respond to that. And I will organize the first meeting of it, or whatever it is that we want to do first.
Great. All right. So that's great. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody.
Could I ask
Yes.
whether the line could stay open for a minute? Zuska, if you have a few minutes, can we talk? Yes,
Sure.
thanks.
And I want to remind everyone that in the chat is a call from Marius, who would love to have some outside speakers for his meeting.
I will
The
just
chat,
add to that, I am going
Yes.
to be speaking, but it is in Uganda time.
Mhm.
So my speech is the end of the morning, and it is going to be at 4:45 in the morning. So if it's going to be earlier than that for anybody else who speaks, and if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be even earlier than that.
I did it for the first one. Paula and Maya and Tanya did it for the second one. Ananda's doing it for the third.
Great, Ananda.
We are a full service organization, whatever else we are.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So